BREWtally Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by rockabilia.com. For over 30 years, Rockabilia has been the go-to destination for all things band merch. With over 500,000 items in their online store and collaborations with today's hottest bands, you're sure to find something you love. Use our code BREW10 at checkout and take 10% off your total order. So go pick up your favorite new piece of merch now over at rockabilia.com. And now, on to the show.
Say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the BREWtally Speaking podcast. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest is the returning Brandon Saller of Atreyu. They have a new album out, the Pronoia Sessions. It is out now via Spine Farm Records. It's a really cool idea they had, basically reimagining some of their classic material, as well as a couple of covers, Like a Stone by Audioslave and Mary Jane's Last Dance by Tom Petty. And honestly, when the news of this reimagined album kind of broke, I was really interested to kind of tackle it from sort of a perspective of, especially in songwriting, but I think we can apply it to more life. We do something and we kind of build this thing, a foundation, and then we kind of build the rest of it out. And I think a lot of times we're going to be pretty content with that, and we just move on because the thing's done. But to kind of be able to go back to something, and especially in a more creative endeavor like songwriting, to then go, okay, let's deconstruct this. How can we rebuild this and have things be new, something that makes it different, that makes it stand out more than it already did? And to do that with hits, I think is also really interesting, to be like, okay, how do we take the essence of what this thing is, but give it new life? Not only for ourselves, but for the people that enjoy this music. It's a pretty ballsy thing to do, and something I think as I get older as well, and have gotten to know the Atreyu dudes over the last handful of years, I feel like that's something since they came back, and I don't necessarily want to say on long live, but I feel like at least since, Baptized, really, it seems like the band has really just kind of adopted this thing of, if we're excited about it and it makes us, feel something, we're going to pursue it to the fullest. And I think maybe there becomes this thing where it's admirable to see that, especially with a band that could rest on what they've done, maybe doesn't feel the need to write anything or outdo their legacy up to now. But I would say it's really been interesting to just kind of see how, I would say, prolific in songwriting the band has, where they're just cranking out things, and it seems like the inspiration is not just coming from Brandon, but coming from everybody, and kind of including everyone's influences into this thing. And from my perspective, it just kind of feels like the band is kind of allowing each other to kind of really take creative risks, but also giving each other the space to nourish that. So it's really interesting. And I mean, honestly, with Brandon especially, I feel like that dude is just kind of the epitome of just doing whatever and just seeing what can happen if you try. I mean, as you'll hear, and I don't want to necessarily take too much away from the chat, but, he wrote a children's book, the Punk Rock Zoo book, and that was solely born out of an idea he had with his own kids. And instead of being like, yeah, there's an idea, well, I don't know, and then just doing nothing beyond coming up with the idea, he kept trying to make it work and to see how far he could get it to go, and to have a tangible product that, other parents are now buying. That's wild. And how do you not see someone doing these things where it's like, I'm going to try this thing, I want to try doing this? And I don't know. I guess ultimately it kind of all boils back down to a few different things that I've talked about on the show so many different times. The multi-potentialite thing of, like, you don't have to be one thing. You can be great at a lot of things, and you can have a lot of passions, and they can come and go as well. But you just explore them and you try. because you never know what could happen. And I think ultimately, the more you do that, the more that you have success, you end up having more self-confidence in yourself, your capabilities. And I think you also just learn that you can navigate this life and that nothing's impossible. And to me, I just see someone like Brandon and the rest of the dudes in Atreyu, and they just motivate me to want to do those things and to try to be better. So without further ado, let's get into my conversation with Brandon, and I'll talk to you on the other side of it. Oh God, I really want to make a really awful first question. Like I feel like a lot of the questions you've been getting lately, but I'll refrain since I'm actually recording this part. um, I don't usually typically like talking about like the record or the album thing because I feel like it kind of dates where we're at.
Yeah.
But there's something interesting, and do you say it the Pronoia Sessions? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. The Travis episode I did earlier is coming out this week as I'm recording, and I was like, I think I'm saying that right. I don't know. But I like this idea of sort of deconstructing to rebuild. I think it's an interesting concept. And obviously that's what you've done with this new kind of reimagined versions of songs that have been around for, in some instances, decades at this point. But what was the process like, of picking songs to see which ones you wanted to do this with, but more importantly, how did you find the process to take something that's so familiar to you and find a new way within it all?
I feel like as far as picking the songs, they sort of just fell in our lap. Like during COVID, we had done a couple acoustic, like our first kind of really acoustic performances that we've ever done, and the songs that we chose just kind of fell in our lap as far as like what we thought would work. So it kind of started with, because I had done a lot of that on Twitch as well. Like I had kind of figured out a lot of like acoustic versions of our songs on Twitch during COVID as well. So like we had kind of been, we knew that it was like the initial ones are like Becoming the Bull, The Theft, Save Us worked really well. So we kind of just started adding song by song, and we would do them in our VIPs sometimes as well. So like by the time it came to actually make the record, all the songs that we were going to do were sort of obvious. It initially started, we were going to do, I mean, this idea started back in COVID, so like it's been brewing for a while. But we were going to do like a live stream, and sort of do an exact mock or as good as we could of the Nirvana Unplugged live, and do like the same set design, like everything, and just do like a live stream for like, a small group of people, and then just have the live recording be the recordings of the songs. We kind of then COVID ended, things opened up. We thought, oh, okay, well, do we want to do this as a show? It's kind of a weird thing to do as a show because we've never done anything like this before. So like, you don't know if it's going to be like a successful show because we have no idea if people even want to hear these versions of these songs, So it's like, well, let's just get in the studio and actually make it a thing. So once it kind of came time to get in the studio, like we realized it was no longer just going to be like an acoustic record. It was more so we were digging deeper into the concept of, like you said, kind of like rebuilding these songs into something to make them their own, have their own life. You know what I mean? I feel like Becoming the Bull reimagined and Right Side of the Bed and like all these songs, these new versions are not just like, it's not, oh, I want to hear the acoustic version. It's like, I want to hear a completely different song. You know what I mean? It's they're very much a whole new thing, which we wanted to make sure of.
Well, and that was sort of when getting this record, because I was really interested to see, like when track listing came out initially, it was like, oh, well, how would you do like a Right Side of the Bed?
You put
More
saxophone in.
Right, and it's funny because, and I don't know if this is like just from, and I think not me knowing you all a little bit more personally, but I think I've seen you guys a lot more consistently since you guys have come back, like through being friends with Porter and so forth. But you've been introducing a lot of these elements in the live setting with Dan playing saxophone, kind of bringing out, going back to that live stream you guys did during COVID, where it's like, you're doing the theft acoustically, and that was really cool. I remember seeing that, thinking, oh, I kind of always thought this could kind of be a song like this, where it's more of a ballad acoustic sense, singer-songwriter kind of thing. And this version on the record kind of is more akin to what you did on that live stream, but I don't know how many people got to see that. So
for sure. I mean, yeah, that's still to this day, we've never done anything with that footage or anything. So I mean, it was just the people that were in there, day of. But yeah, I mean, the theft is a crazy one too, because the theft, when we wrote that song, I wanted to have a Danny Elfman thing. Like, that was me going, I sitting home one day while my wife was in cosmetology school, and like watching Edward Scissorhands and being like, "Ooh, I want to do a song like that. Like, I want to use the Danny Elfman like sort of motif in like what we do," and that was me trying to do that. And I love that song, but this version of the theft is like what I would have wanted to do back then had I known how the fuck to do it. You know what I mean? And like Matt, the producer, had a huge hand. Like, he is masterful in like orchestration and all that stuff too. So it was like that song, the version of the theft is straight up like you close your eyes and you're listening to an orchestra play that song. It's dynamic.
Well, I think what's been kind of interesting about at least that song for me lately is I've been trying to learn it myself, and it's interesting like how, like, when listening to just the construction of the song, like breaking it down from the songwriting perspective, I think what is really interesting to me is like how from the jump it kind of feels cinematic in that sense of like, because you kind of have the swelling of the like, and like everything kind of sets you up to kind of go on this journey. And I think like it's not necessarily a, like, I'm sure a lot of people have, probably said what they've said about the curse being, it's Anne Rice inspired and it's all this shit. But to me, I always thought it was kind of interesting. Actually, no, the theft was not on that record. I'm thinking of the other song I've been trying to learn to play, the interlude.
Oh yeah.
Which is kind of the same thing with just a lot of like pieces like that. But anyway, but I was gonna say, like, with the theft though, and I would even say, kind of going back to, and this is the point I was going to make with the curse, at least, is it felt like going back to back between those two records and those two instances of songs, it seemed like you guys were really harnessing more of like a cinematic, like thinking about things thematically, thinking about what does this look like, where do we put it in the track listing to kind of maybe give it its own space to kind of breathe before we kind of go back into the heaviness on both of those albums. So I think that's something you've kind of always done very well, kind of given the listener sort of that moment of reprieve, something I think Killswitch does a really good job of too, of like those moments of beauty in the heaviness of everything.
For sure. We've always tried to kind of make our records a bit of like peaks and valley vibe, like you have to have down moments, and we want it to be dynamic and kind of take you on a ride. It can't just be fucking turned up to 10 all the time. Like, we're not Hatebreed, we're not, Slayer. Like, there's, you know what I mean? So like we've kind of always, especially starting, I think, on the curse, we really spent time on like, the curse was done and like in order and fully demoed before we even went to the studio to make it. So like that was the first time we really kind of started really focusing on that kind of stuff.
I think it gets interesting because I feel like with this record, I feel like this is probably a good palate cleanser for you guys, because it's like, it's something new. It's still something you obviously already know and have lived with. So like, it's like, these songs, but getting to kind of redo them, I think it always gets interesting this far into a career, because it's like, you're either redoing it because this is how you play these songs now live versus how they were, or fuck it, let's just throw everything to the side and figure out how to do something new and challenge ourselves. But I feel like it's got to be a nice palate cleanser to do something like this, because it's like, I feel like the pressure isn't necessarily there in the studio to be like, oh, we have to write like that hit, we got to do these things. It's just like, we're just having fun, man. And I feel like since Baptized, I'll say it feels like this band has just, that's been the MO moving forward, is like, if we're not having fun doing it, we're not going to do it.
That is rule. We have one rule. Do we like this? That's it. That's all that matters when we're in the studio. That's all. The only thing we think about. That's the only thing that is going through our heads. And if we're not having fun, then it's not going to last very long. Start losing interest pretty quick. So, but we try to. We it's paramount to keep things fun in this band. But you know, it's nice. It's funny, like doing these reimagined versions. Like it kind of gives me like you. I love the idea of even just like re-recordings. You know what I mean? It's so cool to like. I think from the band's perspective, at least it's just from one dude in the band's perspective. Like you make this art and you spend, if you're lucky, like if you're lucky like we are, you spend, you know, over 2 decades touring and playing this music that you wrote when you were a child, essentially. And like you said, it's like, oh, this is how we play the songs live now, or this is how it's kind of changed over the years. And you take that, like, I love the idea of giving fans a new ear to something that already exists, because it's like you don't have to listen to it, you can listen to the old one, but like this is how you know, we wanted to redo these songs. Or I think it's really cool for bands to kind of revisit old material, because it can almost reinvigorate that old material for the band. Like I think a lot of music fans right now are kind of dug deep into the nostalgia hole, which is awesome. I do the same thing. So like it might be hard for some of these bands to get excited about playing like an old record or an old thing, but if you like kind of spice it up for yourself and make it new again, it's like that kind of, it just you're adding on to the lifespan of the potential lifespan of the song for yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I feel like with some of the experimentation that I think you guys have all incorporated intermittently throughout, I would say from kind of the curse moving forward, this feels like the logical progression, even if this weren't reimagined versions of songs. Like I still feel like you would be incorporating these ideas, these whatevers moving forward. But it almost makes me wonder now if you're with some of the covers that you've collectively have done over the career, and now did I lose you? Must be getting a phone call.
Sorry, dude. 1 second.
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry, dude. I don't know what the fuck happened.
I think you got a phone call.
Fucking Instacart, dude.
Oh. But I was gonna say, like,
when they don't have your cottage cheese at the store, dude. This is real stuff.
I mean, that used to be me until Shipped ended up going more like Instacart, and I was like, I'm getting kicked out money, so this doesn't seem like it's worth it anymore. And I would get mad at people for not answering my questions, like, hey, they don't have this, and you wrote no substitutions, but like 3/4 of your shit is no substitutions. I think you're going to be pretty upset if I show up with like 7 items and you can't make anything. Yeah, especially when I can tell it's a dinner. But no, I was going to say, I think to me, like, listening to this reimagined thing almost would have me more wondering, what is this in like reinvigorated you, if you needed that even, but like what does this have you thinking about now, what Atreyu can do on the next record? Because I'm sure you're already writing newer stuff, since it seems like you're always fucking writing.
I don't want to give away all that much.
Well, I was gonna say, the socials have shown that you guys were writing something somewhere really nice looking, so you can at least say that much.
No, we've been writing since May. We did a writing trip in Tokyo. We did a writing trip this last month in Washington. But I think that we were joking, because I think a lot of people won't realize that this is like a reimagined record, and they'll just hear it and be like, "Oh, fucking Atreyu, like they went total pussy, man. Like they're a fucking yacht rock band now." Which
you're playing Shipwrecked. You are yacht rock.
We are, yeah, it's a big yacht. But I don't think people are gonna fucking know what's coming next. Like, we laugh to ourselves often at what is happening when we're in the studio, as opposed to what people might expect. So I'll just leave it at that.
Fair enough.
Hold on, I gotta answer. Hold on, just pause 1 second. This lady's going crazy about my cottage cheese.
You're good.
Just because you know the pain, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I would be really pissed, being like, this motherfucker ain't, like, I'm chopping 2 orders and this motherfucker's holding me up.
Okay, you're done, lady. There we go.
Did she at least send a sweet photo of some other cottage cheese options?
She sent a photo of the whole fucking section.
Oh, sweet. Are you a large curd or small curd?
I don't care. It doesn't, either one doesn't bother me. But I recently got on that it's called Good Culture or something like that.
Yeah,
it's like a nicer one, but it's fucking great. But they're out, so unfortunately, we're just gonna be eating the Kroger brand this time.
Fair enough.
Anyways,
I
this is what the people want to
well,
hear. This is what the
well
people want to
actually
hear. Fuck music. Fuck my life.
no, no
What
actually
kind of
this is
cheese do we eat? You know, that's what they want. Hopefully,
this is a
frozen.
great segue to a question I was going to ask. I've learned in our conversations when you guys are here in town, I kind of like to talk more about, you know, the personal things to kind of get to know someone a little bit better, because I think we're all going through life, and sometimes if you have something that you can expound upon or give wisdom to, then obviously, you know, I would like to learn from people. But I think something interesting to me, and sort of a funny thing between you and I, was you recently moved to Tennessee and have lived out in California, grew up in California your whole life. So how has that been? And honestly, it's probably not as much of a culture shock for you because you tour, so you're used to seeing various parts of the world and being gone from home. But how has that been of an acclimation process for you to get acclimated to completely different environment and weather and everything?
I mean, it's been fucking awesome. I mean, even though I've been here a million times throughout my life, it's still different living here, you know. But for the majority of my experience, I would say the vast majority, people here are so nice. People are cool as fuck. Like you have everything that you want. The only thing that Tennessee does not have, which I have not found yet, which is like it's a bit disheartening, but I'll live,
Mexican food?
is good Mexican food and good sushi. But I also travel enough where I can get my fix, so it's gonna be okay. It's probably better off that there's not good Mexican food because then I just don't eat it. Um,
Yeah.
but other than that, it's been awesome. We know there's so many friends here that you know we already knew that lived here, and then we've made so many good friends already that it's like a crazy good click, and just like I don't know, the culture here is just a little bit more like people just seem to like ride or die for you. You know what I mean? Like I think growing up, you go through a lot of phases of different friend groups, and you have some friend groups that are just kind of fleeting and like, yeah, we hang and it's cool, whatever. But then you have some that are like, oh, these people would take a knife for you. Like and like we're lucky enough to have a couple of those friend groups in our life, but like I feel like that's what we've come into since moving here. So it feels good, man. It's been awesome, and the weather is great. Like I like seasons, so like California is beautiful, and I love it forever. But you have spring, and then it rains sometimes, which is dope. But like here, it's like you have fucking seasons, and there's fall, and there's winter, and it's hot as fuck in the summer. But you kind of like learn to love them all.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the crazy thing is when my wife and a friend and I went to Nashville, it was snowing on our way to go meet up with Maddie and Brittany, like at their
Yeah.
home bar. And I was like, it's fucking snowing here.
Did you go to
Like,
Froggies, dude? Did you
we
go to
went to
Froggies?
Froggies. We went to
Good
Froggies.
for you. Good for
Yeah.
you.
Well, and that was, I wasn't going to necessarily say the name, but I was going to say it was interesting because I feel even in going to Froggies, like Froggies is sort of the same kind of bar like we would go to.
Yeah.
You know, we've gone bar hopping in various states, but it's like dive bars are kind of my MO. So it's like I felt
Yeah.
at home when I went, and I felt that way almost anywhere I went in Nashville, like even in the outskirts away from like kind of like the touristy spots. But and Red Door was hands down my favorite. I kept going back to every day.
That place is a mess, but it's fun.
Well, I mean that's Chicago. That's a Chicago bar. And that's got Malort. That's going to be a mess.
It's awesome.
No, I just because I think there's something to be said sort of about the idea of starting over indirectly so late in life that I feel like
Oh shit!
it's something
Hold on.
more Instacart.
1 second. 1 second. This lady just said, "Do you want 1 or 15 Italian parsleys?" There's no way I ordered 15 Italian parsleys.
I can also speak to sometimes you
Christ.
would get some weird questions like that, and you're like,
I want 1. Oh, 15 count. I want 1. That's weird. This is, I think, probably the coolest part of this whole interview is that we're continually
going through your
taking
Instacart.
pauses to go through my fucking Instacart. Where's the message go?
I mean,
Oh, no. Where did it go? Hold on. This is great. Hold on. This is good stuff. I think people are going to like this.
I am thoroughly enjoying your Instacart thing. At this point, we know that you don't care about small or large curd. Apparently, you do not have a what is it? Some people when they eat you said cilantro, right?
Parsley.
Oh, parsley. Never mind. I was just saying. So you're not.
I'm making a lasagna tonight, which sucks because I'm currently not eating lasagna. but it's a meatball lasagna, and I'm just gonna eat the meatballs. But my neighbor is literally like 5 houses down is Matt, who is 0936. And then Kellen from Memphis Mayfire lives also right in this neighborhood too. So Matt's coming over this afternoon to help me hang some pictures and some shelves in my house because I'm inept when it comes to building things. So in return, I'm making a lasagna.
Well, that's a very nice thing to do. When my friend
Context.
wants to re-tattoo my palm, I cook. Well, I didn't cook him dinner. We just got Jets pizza because he likes Jets. So
This is great.
it's better than I remember it being. But I haven't fucked with it in a long time. But I make a pretty mean like normal pizza myself. So I'd rather just do that. Homemade's always better. Um,
Exactly. So you were saying, sorry.
No, I was gonna say I find it kind of fascinating to kind of think about people who go through a big like up movement, like an uprooting of life, and how you deal with it. Because I don't think too often we get this far into our lives, we kind of experience new firsts again. Like a lot of things you're doing are, oh, I'm doing this again. I already know what this is. So to me, it's kind of interesting just to kind of like, what does that look like? Like uprooting your whole life. Like, is it like my wife and I are talking about doing the same. We have a small list of places if we move, like what we're thinking about moving to. But I just think like that process is kind of interesting of just like, shit, can I really pack up my life and leave? And especially I feel like it gets harder for you because like you got kids. So it's like school, friends, like
Yeah.
all of that.
I mean, dude, I think that's what keeps life fucking exciting, man. Like, uh, I lived in, not to say that I've done that a bunch, but like, I don't know, like, I think the scary shit is always what turns out to be the most cool shit. Like, anything in my life that I've ever been pretty nervous to do or pretty scared to do, and I just jump off the damn cliff, usually ends up being the best things that I've ever done. Whether it's career wise or musically or whatever, it's just like those kind of risks put you in like a bit of an exciting headspace where I think at least I usually end up thriving. But I mean, I love that shit. I mean, I lived in the same house in Huntington Beach for 17 years, and I lived in California my entire life, and was just like, should we move to Nashville? Fuck it, My kids were young enough to where like, they'd only been in school for like a year. My
Hmm.
oldest was only been in school for a year. My youngest hadn't even started school yet, so it was like as far as friends, like they didn't have tons of friends. But like now, like we move and there's like, there's 7 girls on my street
Hmm.
that are just like at my door wanting to party all the time. So like, it's one of those things where like now they're making friends or doing it where it's like we're in a more important phase now for them at least. But I think, dude, if people get an itch and people have some sort of inkling of a need for change, like that, that's the universe telling you something that you probably should listen to.
This might be a weird question. Is leaning into that, knowing that about yourself, or like knowing that kind of doing the hard thing, maybe the uncertain thing, that's where more, and I'm kind of paraphrasing for you, but where the growth kind of has happened, where the exploration of yourself, maybe more confidence in yourself and your abilities comes from. Is that something that you have always had or always sought out, or is this maybe something that is something kind of a newer development in light of kind of the transition from behind the kit to being a front man of the band? Like, I would assume that's kind of one of the biggest things, scary wise, in your career maybe you've done. But I feel like after doing that, that might give you permission to be like, well, I fucking did that, so I can kind of do anything.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I think that probably like in my early 30s, I started kind of gaining more of a confidence in myself and just kind of an overall confidence in like myself as a human and what I did and how I perform and what I contribute, you know what I mean? As a writer, as a band member, as a husband, as a friend, like I kind of became more confident in that and understanding kind of who I was a bit. But at the same time, like, I don't know, I think you just get a little bit older and realize that like you got to just follow the signs. And it's funny, people, I mean, you say like, becoming the front man of this band, like that was one of the least scary things I think I've ever done. The scary thing about it was the internet, because the
Right.
internet's fucking lame and people are fucking assholes. Um, but other than that, like there was no fear in doing what we were doing because it felt right, and I'm in a band that's encouraging, you know what I mean, and we all believed in each other, and as soon as we started doing it, it felt like we should have been doing it all along. But you know, I don't know, I think just in my getting a little bit older, like I said, like maybe my early 30s, I started kind of getting a little bit more of that kind of fuck it attitude, you know, like we have a song on Baptized called Weed, and the lyric is, I find myself when I'm lost in the weeds. Like that's a true ass story. Like I find all the answers I need when I am the absolute most lost, when I am the absolute most like big question mark, I have no fucking idea what's next. That's where I usually find every single answer that I need, and it's always been that way. It's always the hard shit that gets you the good shit. You know.
Out of curiosity, this is such a weird question. And I feel like I'm always like in my head about these kind of questions because someone pointed out they're like, for someone that doesn't like kids or doesn't want kids, you sure ask a lot of questions of your guests about their kids. But I think it's because it's so interesting to kind of look at the evolution of children becoming their own. Like, you know, I have friends that have kids, and I've always found that process to be so interesting, where it's like, you know, to kind of quote a Kevin Smith thing, it's like, you came from my fucking balls and now you're talking to me. Like, just shit like that. But it's like the idea, like, that you're, given the fact that your career is one of, from a creative standpoint of, you know, if I don't think that it literally does not exist, that I feel like that's got to be an interesting perspective in a way to kind of impart on your children, because it's like, you know, they're at an age where everything is sort of like life can, whatever, imagination is still running wild, it hasn't been tampered down. So I feel like maybe one kind of like their creativity and just imagination probably feeds yours, but then also I wonder if some of the challenges and like, you know, like you're saying about weeds and where the line came from and so forth, like if knowing everything that you've done and how unconventional it is allows you to kind of bestow some parental wisdom to them that you think will actually make them, I don't want to say smarter, better, whatever, but I just feel like it would probably allow them to hold on to that innocence and that creativity a lot longer than maybe others whose parents aren't in that same space.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we both like my kids are constantly inspiring me to do fucking everything that I do, but there's so much perspective and little just things that we end up bouncing off of each other. You know, they'll do something that then makes me do something that then re-inspires them to do something else. Like literally, you're probably the first person I've told this. I mean, as far as like interview wise, but so my both my kids are like learning to read. They're first and second grade. They're already reading, but it's like they're still learning to read better, and like books are becoming a thing. You want that to be more and more fluid, and just like they want them to be great at it, right? So my oldest daughter, it was like she was having trouble getting just like interested in books, so it was like getting books that she actually wanted to read and cared about. And so I was like, okay, well, what if I wrote a book, and I like a kid's book, I bet you she'd be into it. So I wrote a kid's book, and I wrote both of my daughters into it by name. Like they're not versions of them, really, they are, but like it's like the character names are their names. So in doing so, I don't even have the final book yet. It's just like a PDF of like the illustrations and stuff. But it's like they asked me to read Punk Rock Zoo to them every night, and it's like they're interested and they love their characters, and like they're like, and it's like, oh, how did you make a kid's book? And for me, it was like, I'm gonna make a kid's book, and it was like, I don't know how to do that, and I'm very much like, fuck it, figure it out. So I just did it, and they're like, you can just make a kid's book, and I'm like, yeah, like you just made a story. I'm like, yeah, I just wrote a story, and then I had these guys draw the photos, and I told them what I wanted, and they're like, you can do that, and I'm like, yeah. So in turn, they inspired me to write a kid's book to try to inspire them to want to read, which then inspired them again to go, wait, you can just write a book, you can just make up a story, and I'm like, yeah. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? It bounces off both ways at all times. You know what I mean? Which is awesome.
Well, and I think that's the thing that is interesting to me about children. Like I said, watching them sort of become their own people. I mean, even some of the thoughts they have, like, and I know I've said this on the podcast before, but I remember grabbing lunch with like my old friend and his kid. At the time, I think his kid was like 6 or 7. And we're just eating McDonald's French fries, and he just fucking eats one, and he like looks at it and stares at it. I'm like, "What's wrong, buddy?" And he goes, are French fries just mashed potatoes like shoved in a casing? And I was like, holy fuck.
Damn.
Like I was like, I was like, oh my god, I'm not even high, and that's like the most like high thought I've ever heard. Like, holy shit. And it's just like it's one of those. It's like I've been eating French fries for, I mean, at that point, probably 28, almost 30 years, and have never, and I've looked at them and been like, oh, I mean, they kind of look like mashed potatoes, but I've never thought to be like mashed potatoes shoved into a casing, and that's French fries. It's like,
kids say some crazy shit. It's awesome.
I know that's what. But so, I mean, I guess it's a really good segue too, because something I kind of wanted to touch on from when we last chatted. Obviously, those that follow you specifically more closely know that you have other creative outlets between Hell or High Water and American Gentleman. Hell or High Water has been kind of on the back burner, I think, for very obvious reasons of everyone being busy with the main gigs. But I don't feel like I've seen anything with American Gentleman in quite a while, and I know that was more of a sync opportunity type outlet.
That was that whole project was all based in sync, but the reality of that was it was me and my writing partner C4, his name's Chris Umana, but he lives in LA, so the reason why we haven't done tons is because I moved. But there'll be more in the future. We still have probably, I'd say 12 or 13 songs that I haven't released. It's so funny. This is like my brain. I'm a bit ADD. I've never been diagnosed as ADD, but I'm just, I would think that diagnosis would come in positive. But we did this thing like a few years ago where like TikTok was first kind of cracking. I was like, let's give it a shot here or whatever. So we were going to release 2 songs a month forever. That was the campaign. And we were like, oh, like we have 28 songs in the bag. Like, let's release them. And then by the time we get through those 28, we will have written 20 more, whatever. So I had artwork made for the first like 20 something songs for the first like year of releases. And I think I only got to like month 6. And then I just forgot. So there's like a bunch of songs with like art and shit that just haven't been released, and I just have to like put them out again. But it's one of those things where just life takes you different roads. You start paying attention to different shit. But there'll be more American Gentleman stuff. I mean, since moving here, you kind of start writing with new people. You start doing new projects. I have like literally 2 new projects.
That was my next question. Was that you're never one to just not be doing something? So I feel like you've got to be doing something new, especially given now where you live and the people around you.
I've been writing with this awesome dude named Eric Dam. He's in a band called the BREWtally, and we have like sort of a like Need to Breathe cinematic like folk thing called Stomp and Holler, that we're gonna release some stuff with, and then we started a more like sort of like grimy punk swagger thing called Young Squire, that we are going to release a few songs as well too. But it's just for the same kind of shit. It's just like writing to pitch to sync and just to get to be creative. But there's so many like awesome writers and just like homies too that we hang out with now too, that I just feel like there's probably going to end up being a lot of random music that gets created.
Well, I feel like that was the interesting thing, learning more, like getting to know Maddie a lot more, was just like between him, Cody, like literally that whole pocket of Spring Hill where you're just like, oh, there's all these great songwriters and shit literally across from you. And I remember thinking, I was like, man, I think I either asked him or maybe Cody, but was like, oh, during COVID, did you guys just like, how did like 17 new bands did not form out of that? He's like, there's a lot of stuff you haven't heard from different iterations of all these people. So it just feels like if you're now a part of that it's like, well, holy shit, like what are you doing with like all the people I know that are already there, already doing shit together?
We need to create the super group of super groups or something.
The Spring Hill super group.
Spring Hill super group, yeah.
It's just an artist collective, and it's genreless. It goes everywhere and touches on everything.
100%.
And you'll only play at Froggy's.
Yeah, just exclusively Froggy's on Saturday nights.
Oh wow, you're giving yourself top billing on a prime night.
It's fucking better, dude. I sit at the same table every time me and my wife go in there. I sit at the same fucking table, and they don't even ask what we want. The lady just brings our drinks to the table.
I wonder if it's the same lady and that served Maddie and Brittany and my friends and I.
But we're more so daytime patrons. I'm a degenerate with a fucking job. So when the kids are at school, you know, and there's no chores to do that day, like you go in and you get some fucking wings and a vodka soda at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Sound like my wife, because Maddie was like, "You got to get the chicken wings. They're the best chicken wings ever," and or
You
chicken
gotta get them
tenders.
well done though. Well,
Yeah. Oh, Instacart's coming back.
no, that was a random
Oh,
call.
damn it! I was like, let's update this Instacart.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's just Travis trying to get some his per diem for his donut fund.
Got that problem.
I remember Bridget had left because she wasn't feeling great when you guys were on that one run here, and we had brought all those donuts. And then she was like, "Did Travis eat them?" And I sent her some video of him throwing them into the crowd while he's eating one. She goes, "We bought those fucking donuts just for him to throw into the crowd." I go, "Bridget, we didn't pay for tickets. It's okay. It's a fair trade." We brought donuts.
Yeah, he's into throwing them now. He's like passing them out like freaking keepsakes. But like, imagine being in a show and catching a donut. That's no matter what the donut. That's not a great situation. You're sticky and messy, and like now you have a donut. He's throwing out like fucking like cream filled donuts, like stuff that you shouldn't throw, and people are just like palming them and just smashing them.
I'd like to see people go for like a long john, just each grab like a half, and it just squirts over everybody.
Yeah, just palm an apple fritter and just back into the pit.
I saw someone at a gender reveal thing, and I didn't catch this the first time watching. But this dude was like lifting, like doing like a dead press, and then putting it down and smashing the gender reveal bags. And it was blue, and it just like when it literally blew, it blew into this chick's face, and she just has blue all over her face, all in her hair, and she's just filming and like doesn't care, and like no one notices until like toward the very end of the video where they're all pointing at her, and then that's when I caught it. I was like, oh shit, I didn't even see that.
Everything about this seems accurate. If you're gonna do a gender reveal in a gym, this all seems
well, it was outside someone's house or whatever, but they just got the weightlifting shit. But I think outside of Biggie, that's probably the only person I know that would have any of that actual equipment in their home.
Yeah. He's got a film situation.
I feel like it would be a little remiss, you know, it's still 2024, so we are still within the 20 years of the curse. I'm sure you guys are all kind of tired of talking about this record, just given the fact that I feel like it's such a polarizing talking point at this point now, because I feel like the vocal minority that you probably hear online is like, it's never been better than The Curse. That was the only record. It's the best record.
I like how you said the vocal minority. That's accurate.
yeah, that's what it is. It's the vocal minority. Yeah. They're the loudest, but they're actually not a lot as it seems. But I was gonna say, like, because it was funny, even in talking with Travis, I sent him a message the other day after I brought this up during our chat. But I was like, it's funny because even the advertising material that I'm seeing like on your band socials for the repressing of the album, it's like the best-selling Atreyu record, and I was like, I don't think you guys had a hand in writing that little bio for the selling of the record, because I don't think you would have said that.
No, well, but I mean, it's one of our best-selling records,
right?
So I mean, it's true, but at the same time, there's a thing that's like, music is all opinion. So it's like, if you think The Curse is our best album, it is. And if you think that fucking Baptized is our best album, it is. And so it's like, it only matters what you think. And it also doesn't matter what you think. So it's like, I'm well aware what The Curse has done for us and will continue to do for us. Just as much as I'm aware what Lead Sails and Death Grip did for us and will continue to do for us. So I'm not tired of talking about it. Like, I think it's really cool. Like, you know, we sold more tickets faster than we ever have in our career for this House of Blues show that we're doing in a couple weeks. So there's quite obviously something there. So I'm not like the dude that's like, oh, I'm tired of talking about it. Like, it's fun to talk about. It's fun to dig into these songs again. It's fun to rehearse these songs because, again, like I say, you're coming at things with a fresh ear. If you have a fresh perspective, it makes things exciting again. I have to scream a lot of these fucking songs. Me and Porter have to figure out how to sing a lot of these songs. Is it going to sound identical? Absolutely not. Because, one, Alex had a very unique scream. And two, so do me and Porter in a completely different way than he does. But
Absolutely.
is it sounding fucking awesome? And is it really exciting to play and like for us to do? Yeah. So like I'm still jazzed on the curse thing. Like if you're lucky enough to be in a band for as long as we have, and you have even one moment in time that your fans will praise and put on a pedestal and make you feel special about, shut the fuck up and enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, what you could also never not you could not have that. You could not have one of those. I would like that less. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're very, very lucky to have a lot of people that love the curse. We have a fucking lot of people that love lead sales, and we have a lot of people that like either all of it or just modern Atreyu.
Right.
Like there is so many people that find drowning or found gone and then went backwards. You know what I mean? So
So
we're
weird.
very lucky to have all of those things. So I'm still very excited with what's going on with the curse stuff. It's fun.
I think like what gets interesting about it, and thinking about it from literally being alive through this whole journey
Yeah.
of the bands. So I think like that's the interesting thing about getting older for myself with some of these bands, some of the records and so forth is like, shit, has it been 20 something fucking years since like this record came out? At
21,
times
bro.
it
Next year,
doesn't
21.
it doesn't feel like it at times, but at times when I think back, I'm like, oh no, it's been all of those 20 years.
Yeah.
But I think like what gets interesting is kind of looking back at sort of the from my perspective of things, I guess I should say. Like I remember seemingly on Suicide Notes, it seemed like you were always perpetually either first to four, second to four. I think in very rare instances, I remember some tours where you were like direct support, but it's like you were always kind of the first of two on a package tour. But it seemed like you were always, at least here in where I live, seemed like you were always constantly coming around every few months on those tours, making a name for yourself. By the time you guys were putting out the curse, I remember going to see you guys like headlining with like Unearth, Scars on Broadway, and somebody else I can't remember off the top of my head. And it was wild to be like less than a year or so after I saw you, like just seeing literally the progression and the growth of the band, even reinvesting back into your stage show. You're like wearing the all white outfits and everything, which as a person from the crowd with the light white lights, that was an awful lot of white that you could barely see anything.
Yeah.
But was a thing where it's like, oh, something is happening culturally now. And I know I've said this repeatedly on the show, but honestly, the only band I've ever felt like I've seen in real time that same thing happening is Ice Nine when they were with you guys, like in that same position, like second to four. And then that was the record in the cycle. And it's just like, I don't know that many people get to see it happen two times in a lifetime, like where you're very obviously cognizant of it happening, but you're like, oh shit, something's happening. Yeah. I would assume you have to feel it, and you probably see it when it's happening to other bands and so forth. But like, what is that like when you're so young and so new into a career to kind of hit that success that I don't know if you're looking for, but it just happens?
I feel like back then, I mean, you're obviously looking for it. No one, if you start a band and to not have people like you, then you're you're lying. But I think back then we were so young. I mean, we did put out Suicide. I mean, I've told this story before. We put out Suicide Notes, and our first week of Suicide Notes was 1,500 copies or something like that. And I was like, holy shit, 1,500 people bought our CD. Like, that's fucking crazy. And I remember we were in Colorado somewhere, and then the next week we got the scans again, and it was like 2,000. Like it went up, or it was like right around the same, whatever it was. And I'm like, wait, I don't understand. I thought 1,500 people bought it already, and they're like, no, that was last week. And I'm like, this happens every week. Like it didn't occur to me. Like, you know what I mean? So we were so young, and like you're right. Like we were second of four, whatever it was. We did like, that first year we toured for fucking like 9-10 months almost straight, and it was just like going, and all we wanted to do was tour and grow our band. So we just got in the van and didn't get out. So by the time the curse came, there was fucking really good growth. I mean, we did a headline tour, I think, at the end of Suicide Notes, and it was us, Under Oath, God Forbid, and Darkest Hour. And And it was the first headline tour we ever done, and it was like, wow, like there was like 400 people coming to the shows. We're like, this is crazy. And then, obviously you put out the next record, the curse popped even harder from the jump. You know what I mean? I don't even remember what the curse first week was, but it was fucking a lot. But it was like back in the day, like that was when it really started to fucking, we were doing like huge signings and shit, and it was just like noticeably bigger. But you kind of just rode the wave. Like we were young, so it was just kind of like, yeah, I guess this is what happens when you start a band. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So it's like, but you know, you definitely see those moments of growth, and you notice them, and we've always tried to kind of like you said, kind of reinvest back into the band and just put out the best show, the best records we can. But I think when we were young, it was just like put your head down and go, and you're just
Yeah.
having a good time. And then like, holy shit, a year and a half's gone by. We're making another record now, and it's big. Like it just kept growing and growing and growing. So a lot of it's blurry, but you're definitely cognizant of it for sure.
I would pose this to you, and I had asked Ken Susi this a long time ago, and then we talked about it on record on the show, so I'm not talking out of turn, but I remembered asking him when I knew he was leaving on Earth at the time, and I had kind of asked him, I was like, is there a point in Unearth's career where you're like, because, listening to Doc Coyle's podcast with a lot of people from that same era we're talking about right now, a lot of people I can't help but notice are like, well, if the label would have just pushed a single, would have given us more money, if this tour would have actually gone through, like it's always blaming somebody else for what did or didn't happen. And so I remembered asking Ken, I was like, is there a tour that you remember, like, we could have taken this one or we take this one, and the trajectory of the band was forever changed from that moment forward? And he was like, 100%, I can tell you the tour. And he goes, Taste of Chaos. He goes, look who did it and look at what it did for him. As Lay Dying, then, or you guys and Killswitch. He goes, we went and did the Slayer tour for the 17,000th time, which is great. Slayer tour is always great, but we did that. And all three of the bands that opted to do something a little left of center than what we were all doing went on and hit a different demographic, and all the next records did very well for them.
Yeah.
Did that tour feel like that kind of split the road for you guys? I don't know if there were other tours being offered at that time, but was that tour seemingly that defining moment for you as well, where you kind of also right time, right tour, everybody on that first Taste of Chaos like really ascended from there?
I mean, I think that was definitely one of them. But there was a few before that too. I think the first big thing that we ever kind of like nervously jumped into that we're like, oh, we'll see how this goes, was we had just been doing like tours with like Lamb of God and like Shai Hulud and fucking Snapcase, Boys That's Fire, like Evergreen Terrace. That was all hardcore bands. We were just touring with hardcore bands all the time and metal bands. And then we got an offer to do a tour with Taking Back Sunday that went directly into a tour with The Used. And we were like, we could do both. It'll be like The Used will be West Coast and Taking Back Sunday will be East Coast. And we're like, why? Like, that's not going to be weird. Like, I'm not going to, like, we're just going to fucking terrify all these little girls. And like, we did it. And it was like, holy fuck. That is the reason why since then we can do Warped and Ozfest. We can do radio shows and metal fests. We can do, you know what I mean? Like, and that Taste of Chaos was definitely another one. But I think Taste of Chaos, everyone was at another like elevated level that us, As Lay Dying and Story of the Year, all came like fucking swinging on that tour. Like we had like fucking 24 guitar cabs, had a fucking 6-foot drum riser, just like trying to just like outdick each other. You know what I mean? The whole time. But it was because we all were like on pretty even playing fields, and it was like everyone was fucking swinging for the fences on that tour. So even on like some of the more opening bands, like Unearth would have fucking demolished that tour. They would have been they would have crushed that. But it also makes sense. Like you go where you're comfortable and where you think it's going to be good. Obviously, Unearth is a way more metal band than we are, but not more metal than As Lay Dying is. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I mean, fucking, that was definitely a big pivotal tour. Even more so, the next Taste Chaos we did after that was even more so because it was Avenged, Bullet, us. Fucking, there was some Japanese bands on there. Like there was another one where it was like everyone was just swinging for the fences.
Yeah, I feel like the big tour that stuck out at the time was when Family Values came back around, I think in like 07. Yeah. And you guys were on that, and I was like, Really? Like just the whole lineup was weird.
It's one of the best festival billings we've ever had.
I mean, it seemed like everyone at that point was like established enough in careers where they're like, "Fuck it, this is just let's have fun and put on a good show for everybody." But I just remember when the lineup came out, I was like, "That's a lineup. That's not what I was
At the time
expecting from."
we were kind of in our lead sales era, and it was our first experience kind of doing radio stuff and kind of being involved with like radio bands. You know what I mean? So like to be like, oh, here's a festival that has all of the big ones, but there was still like some cred. You know what I mean? It was like Corn Evanescence headline or kind of so co-headlining ish,
Yeah.
and then us, and then it was fucking Flyleaf, who was like a massive radio band. Fucking Hell Yeah was on it, so that's fucking sick. Like, you know what I mean? Trivium was on that fucking tour. Like, it was like a cool mix of like a few of the bands that were new to the party with just like a bunch of other bands that were like crushing. But that was sick.
What is it like for you now to kind of be the elder statesman? I mean, like you're taking some younger bands out, have been over the last, since you guys have come back. How important is it to you to kind of be that elder statesman now that's maybe showing some people how to tour professionally for like the first time?
I mean, I think it's awesome. I think, if I love, I don't care to be a mentor, but if people have questions and people want to, whatever, like I can tell them a story or two. But I don't know, like I think this day and age, like we've always taken bands like they're in the last maybe like 10 years, a lot of our tours are ended up for one reason or another, like kind of booked late. So it'll be like, oh, who's going to be the support? And it's like, we'll pick what is sort of available, you know what I mean? Or what someone tells us is going to add tickets or be a good draw. And then it's always like, okay, or it's the bands we like best out of the list. But I kind of like, as far as like being an older dude, I want to just be an ambassador from now on of just shit that I actually think is cool. Like I don't think we've ever had a support band that I was like, wow, there was so many people that came to the show because they were on it. You know what I mean? Like people like the package, but it was never like, except for Iceland Kills. Iceland Kills is the only support band that I was like, wow, they sold more merch than us tonight again. But like, you know what I mean? Aside from that, it's kind of just like everyone it's always the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You never could tell the difference. So it's like, why don't we just bring out bands that we like? So my main focus for the future is only bring out bands that we actually enjoy. So that we can be like, hey, our fans of music, do you like us? This is what we like. Instead of being like, here's some bands. Like there's too many just fucking bands these days. There's too many bands that are just like, yeah, that's a band. You know what I mean?
Looking back at the career you've had so far, what has been, and I'm going to take away the very obvious answer of like the fact that it exists and we're still here all these years later, taking that one off the table. What has been one of the wildest things when you look back on your career of 25 years of doing this and knowing that you're still probably at least got another 10, 15 years, God willing?
20, 25, 30.
It's up to you, but like, how does it feel to be?
We'll wait for you. We're going to be around long enough to live the second coming of emo.
the 40th anniversary of the 40th anniversary of the curse. You guys are going to get out there and do it.
We're doing it again.
Porter will look like John Campbell with the white beard.
Yeah, and I'll just look like me because I've been looking old forever.
Hey, you know what? Eventually, it's like Steve Martin and all them. It's like you just look the same after a while.
Yeah, you're just a human. You just stay the same.
Yeah.
So what was the question? What's been like the
what? Yeah, like what has been like kind of your biggest like shock of like the career at this point?
I feel like when we started a band in high school, it was because we wanted to like do something cool. And like, I didn't think that we weren't those dudes that were like, I wanted to change the world, man. Like, I don't know. We just wanted to play music and we thought what we did was cool and enough to like dive into it and actually give it a shot. The fact that it worked was my first like, damn, I can't believe that this actually worked. Further than that, I'm 41 years old. I have 2 children and a wife. And the band that I started in high school with my friends still exists, still thrives, and is somehow still growing. That to me is fucking crazy. You know what I mean? And I'm at the age now, and we've been around long enough now where there's starting to kind of be a lot of these different people in different bands and people that you wouldn't expect that are like, man, loved this album, man, loved this album, and it's like, fuck, like, that's just a wild thing to ever accomplish in itself. Like, we get in a room and create art, and there's a bunch of people that are really fucking not only stoked on it, but it like impacts their lives. That's fucking wild. You know what I mean? That's an insane thing in itself. So that is the most like, huh? Me?
Last question for you, so you can get on to your way to getting your cottage cheese and getting this awesome meal
Better fucking
planned.
not forget shit.
You're gonna get spinach instead of parsley.
Parsley. I can't put spinach in the lasagna, guys.
You can actually.
I'm not gonna though. I'm not a fucking bitch. I'm not gonna spinach in the lasagna.
There's the quote right there. I hope Blabbermouth picks that up. Atreyu frontman says he ain't a bitch for not putting spinach in his lasagna.
Print that. You can print that front page.
Where can everyone find you, or anything you'd like to plug online?
I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, but I just don't really post very much. The Brandon Saller on Instagram. And I'd like to plug something in to this room that I'm in, but there's no power outlets, so I can't do that.
That's why you have a friend coming.
Yeah, we have a new album out called the Pronoia Sessions. If you like our music previously, you'll probably like Pronoia. It's a great thing when you want to listen to Atreyu, but it's Sunday morning and you're hungover. This is your answer. Or maybe you're cooking dinner and you want something a little bit more mellow. This is your answer. And if you've never heard of the band Atreyu, you probably just check out the Pronoia Sessions. If you're fans of John Mayer or, Fleetwood Mac or movie scores, check it out. You might like it. And then Atreyu might become your favorite band. And it was all because you listened to this podcast today and I said what I said. So that's it.
I need to hopefully get a hold of somebody to try to get me some of the merch from the show that you guys are playing, because I hear through the grapevine some old designs are coming back. So I have since gained. I'm not a youth large anymore. I'm a full adult large.
It's funny that I realized I'd be like, yeah, I'm not a medium anymore, and then I realized I was never a medium. But I fucking squeezed those damn shirts on my body. Yeah.
So got the heartogram too as well.
I'm sure that a few of us might know a guy that can help you out.
Yeah, absolutely. Very excited for you guys. I wish maybe hopefully selfishly the tour will become a tour and not just 2 dates where you're playing this album, and I can relive my youth one full evening with you guys.
We shall see. We shall see.
But very appreciative of the time. Always enjoyed bullshitting with you. And looking forward to getting to do another one, maybe over some claws or whatever. We can throw on the Pronoia Sessions and have a nice coffee and a little steam.
I like it.
Just effervescent.
Beverages are nice.
Beverages are nice. Enjoy the rest of your day, man.
All right, you too, bud.
So that was my conversation with Brandon. Want to thank him once again for taking the time, for kind of covering a wide array of things. I mean, I didn't even mention in the intro, 20 years of The Curse, performing that record, how they were going to do it, just kind of thinking back to that era of the band, thinking about monumental things that kind of made everything else kind of align. I mean, like I was saying in the intro, seeing a band that's willing to take risks and to kind of do things that maybe seem wrong is the word that comes to mind, but seems like it shouldn't work, and finding growth in all that stuff. I mean, it's like going back to the Taste of Chaos, going back to the Warped Tours and stuff like that. Like, and to a degree, even I would say at the time, maybe even doing like the Ozfest when they did Ozfest, like maybe they were not on as heavy as everybody else, so they would stand out in that sense. Go to Warped Tour, well, now you're heavier than a lot of the bands we have at the time. Doing Taste of Chaos, where you're kind of not necessarily the band that's kind of consistently represented on this package tour and so forth, or even subsequently the Family Values tour years and years later. It's a thing where you kind of can pinpoint to all these things over the course of a band's tenure or their career, but you don't realize in the moment, are you aware that if I make this decision and it pays off, this could be the thing, or fuck it, let's just roll the dice and just see what happens. So to kind of think about a lot of those things and to kind of ask Brandon, like, were you aware of that? Like, what was going through your minds? What was it like back then when you're kind of doing some of these things? Is really interesting, and it's, it's never lost on me either. I know. I think it's pretty obvious that Atreyu are and have been one of my favorite bands for a very, very long time. And I've talked about this weird kind of duality thing that exists now for me with this band where, I know so much about the records and I've listened to them for so long and picked them apart and, have learned how to play a lot of them on guitar and such. But then now I've gotten to know all these people as well. And it's kind of a weird thing to traverse, sort of this like, I'm a big fan of the band, but I also have come to know you as people. So like, I don't want to fan out necessarily, but I have questions as a longtime fan. So it's really cool kind of getting to do these things and getting to further have conversations with, some of these people I've gotten to know and would call friends at this point, as weird as it is to kind of admit that on this show. But, looking at what Brandon has done over his life, over his career since, I've been following it, nothing short of inspiring, honestly. I mean, what he does with like American Gentleman, understanding that there's an avenue in music that he wants to challenge himself to, which is more sync opportunities and writing for that, which I think is an entirely different kind of animal to think of. Not writing something necessarily because you're like, this is just a song and I'm writing it, but I have an idea and it kind of needs to fit into this thing and this is what it exists for. Like, to know that you're kind of creating something for the love of music, but also to kind of make it be like, all right, we would like this to be used in blank kind of advertisements or whatever, or these kind of opportunities to have it be synced up with for, a movie or something, I think is really interesting. And to kind of navigate that even, and honestly, the bigger one too, as we discussed, was moving. Ironically enough, as of when I'm recording this, we just finished booking a trip to Nashville to go back. So I know I'm only about 30, 40 minutes away from Brandon and Maddie from Memphis Mayfire and a few other people that I know live down that way. So hopefully might be able to link up with some people and have some good barbecue, some good food, maybe some good drinks for those that indulge in that as well, and just enjoy Nashville for what it is. But I mean, honestly, packing up and moving your family and kind of starting something new there, I feel like is kind of terrifying. Like, my wife and I talk about moving quite a bit, and we're sort of met with, the excitement of something new, but, there's also the trepidation of a lot of things of like packing up your life and moving somewhere. And I don't necessarily mean to make it sound doom and gloom, but it's like when it's just going to be the two of you or just your family. And it's like, yeah, a few other people, but it's not the same as like, having all your friends and families and your haunts and all that kind of stuff as it is when you pack up and move somewhere. So, like I said, Brandon has so many things I wanted to kind of discuss with him, and I'm really glad I got the opportunity to. And hopefully you enjoyed the episode. To kind of start wrapping things up, if you would like to keep up with Atreyu, you can go to AtreyuOfficial.com. If you'd like to keep up with Brandon, you can go to his Linktree and his socials, Linktree/Brandon Saller. I'll spell everything out for you. Facebook Atreyu, Instagram Atreyu Official, Twitter at Atreyu Official. If you'd like to keep up with Brandon, you can find him on Instagram at @TheBrandonSaller, on Twitter at Brandon Kyle Saller. And check out his book, Punk Rock Zoo. There's an Instagram page for that. Everything else should be in the link tree for Brandon, but really cool. And like I said, and have been saying this whole time, super inspiring to see someone just kind of doing something and doing it for all the right reasons. It wasn't born out of anything more than wanting to do something for his kids and then realizing that maybe there are others that would enjoy this project as well. So kudos to him. Pick it up, especially around this holiday season. That also brings us to following us. Brew Speak Pod on everything. Rate, review, subscribe. You know why that's important. If you want to email me with guest suggestions or keep the conversations going about anything, email me at brutallyspeaking@gmail.com. After this last week, between the Esley dying stuff, don't want to get into that, but between the Esley dying stuff, people asking me if John Cooper was actually as nice or easy to talk to as it seemed before listening to the episode, in addition to me kind of riling up some people with my Michigan football team winning against Ohio State, winning the game. It was not a pretty win, but it's a win. We're 4-0 in the last 4 years. Still hold on to the overall record. So if you're a Buckeyes fan, sorry, not sorry. there's always next year, but who knows? It's exciting time in sports. Been great getting to kind of bullshit with everybody through various mediums. So continue on with that. Been much appreciated. And thank you so much to Rockabilia for their continued support of the show. Use our code BREWtally at checkouts. Head on over to rockabilia.com, and they have so many things going on over there. One of which was actually just announced that I've been kind of toying, pun intended, toying and teasing you all with over the last few months, but they introduced the Encore Toy Company, which is a collaboration between them and Vannon Watches. Essentially, basically, they are starting everything out with their first collectible vinyl figure. It's going to be Milo from the Descendants. I've known of this for a hot minute. There's a few more things that are kind of being worked on behind the scenes over there, but very much proud of them and everything that they continue to do, all the collaborations they're doing with so many bands, new, old bands, everything in between, really expanding what we as music fans can consider merch. I mean, before, I think the company mainly was just thought of to be t-shirts and things of that, like wearable apparel, but now they're definitely kind of, I would say, staying up more with the times. And expanding into collectibles and a lot of other things that we as music fans are definitely into and enjoy. So again, use the code BREWtally at checkout, take 10% off your total purchase order. Great for around the holiday times, saving you money and helping you knock loved ones off of your holiday shopping list. Join me next week where I have Mike from Boston Manor joining me. That was a really, really fun conversation. I've been looking forward to getting that one out to you. Come back next week. Enjoy the rest of yours. I'll see you then.